So in this example, we are going to see what is tab-based view, but there is a template already available for you, but I would like to do it from the scratch. So I'm just going to start with the single view application. As this example, we are not going to write much code, but we are going to spend time with the storyboard, how you can have a tab-based design added to that. So maybe tab example, just giving an application name tab example. So tell where your project need to be located. Once you are done, pretty useful stuff. As usual, you have got a single view controller, and which is going to be an initial view controller. If your design requires a tab based, first point why you need a tab, that you have to first get yourself cleared. Usually tab based design, which takes the user to a different categories. One might not have a relationship with another. That's very important point. If a tab content one require another relationship with another tab content, probably your design is not suitable for a tab. Mean each tab is an independent set of view controllers. So one of a child of the particular tab which has a view controller, and that need to communicate to another view controller which is located in the another tab. Maybe that is not a proper design to have a tab controller. So a tab view controller, assuming for a company which produces a lot of items, and the company will have a first tab, say products. The second category, which talks about their history, or they may be their business relationship, or some sort of reference or testimonials or whatever it is. That could be the second one. If you see, the product and testimonial might not have any relationship because they are a different content. The third tab maybe which talks about their location, or maybe the company's associated board of directors or anything else. So the third tab. So three different categories, and one may not have any relationship with each other. So when the user select on products, so the product may display the very first page or the very first view controller, maybe displaying the list of products and its subcategories or whatever it may be. So once the user click on the product or one of a product he selects, that user may be taken to another view controller where the description about the product being explained. Again, he can come back and pick another product and keep on going here and there. Suddenly he may decide to choose the another tab which is called board of directors. So when he goes, the view controllers, whatever he was seeing, just stop there itself and comes to a second category or third category, whatever it may be. It displays the specific view controller, and again he wants to go to the product category. He clicks on it, but it starts from where he actually left. So independent set of view controllers. So that's what the tab based design. So no need to rush, like, my design should have tab, without even analyzing what kind of product you are developing. So that depends. So if your product categorization requires such a way where independent set of view controllers need to be located, tab based design is ideal. At first, let me create a tab design. The first point, we always start with I prefer to have a set of view controllers and tied up with the navigation controller still. You will come to know why I still prefer navigation controller. First part, we always start with embed in navigation control. This is what we often we were doing. Let me have them. So there is a first view controller. Bring it. So this view controller is embedded into this one. Okay. We could add a title. A tab title. I'll come back. Now, this navigation view controller, I'm going to embed inside a tab bar controller. You see the stack. The first tab, single tab it has, and that tab actually loads a navigation controller. Of course, navigation controller will be loading the subsequent view controller, whatever associated. The single tab design. So let me bring other components. say I'm going to need another view controller. I'm just keeping it over here. Say we'll keep a button. Keep it somewhere in the center. This is not my design always. I prefer to have a left edge starting point. So next view something. Okay, when the user click on this button, he is taken to the selection. Doesn't appear sometime. Okay, he is taken to this view controller as usual. We expect. Only difference as of from what we have done, one single tab controller, we have just embedded the existing view controller. If you see that the initial view controller has been shifted to this one, but it is a single tab design. That doesn't make sense in fact, but still, so far what we have done is a usual thing what we know already. If I have to add a constraint, I will finish it off with that. So let's see if at all I get any kind of a different look and feel. I always prefer a lower one. We see that there is a small text, actually slightly grayed out area, and there is an item, some sort of thing. I think I haven't changed the title of anything. Probably I can give a title for that, but still this particular design takes me as I usually do. But only thing, this particular bottom, which looks like some sort of toolbar along with some button, is located. It's highlighted, looks like slightly bluish, but the view controller works as it is, as we expect. So let me try to do some sort of designing to this item. When I click on it, see somewhere it is highlighting. Once I go to this attribute inspector, I can change the title. Say maybe my tab, some title, whatever title you want. If you want an image, an icon, small icon you'd like to display, that also you can add. Otherwise, if you are not comfortable with that, there are plenty of templates available. Say featured. You see that by default it adds some sort of icon. So that also you can choose with them. So probably it looks pretty fine. And there is a batch information also you can provide. Usually batches in as far as mobile application development, which tends to give some sort of updates about your application. For example, for a messenger application, if a new message arrives, there will be number 1 or 2, some sort of red color marking would be there in your icon. Say I have a featured item, maybe some 2 items have been added, so it just highlights, and you can dismiss the batch and reduce to 0 through program, that you can run the program to do that. So if you want to just do some sort of customization for your tab, you can very well do it at this point. So I just wanted to go ahead with the whatever template available, so I'm pretty fine with that. Maybe I'll add the title. So what was the thing? Featured. Something, whatever. So let's see how it looks. You see that it looks pretty nice at this point. Of course it works as it is, but we will see a slightly different thing when we add a new tab or one more tab element. Adding new tab element is pretty straightforward. If you look at that particular structure, in a tab view controller or tab bar controller, of course it loads a navigation controller and it stacks accordingly. So how we are going to do next? So probably things start in this way. I'm going to need another view controller. stack. It's not connected so far, just a view controller. I'm going to embed a navigation controller for this particular view controller as well. Okay. I'm trying to make this navigation controller as a second tab element. Let me do that. Connect tab bar. Just try to connect, but this time you need to select relationship segue. Make sure you don't select this one. So once you select it, you got another tab relationship. Of course, we are going to see that. It doesn't add so far. I wrongly added, sorry. Tab bar is located over here. One second, let me bring it to the right spot. I can zoom it out, but the selection doesn't appear over one point of time. Let me try to zoom. Okay, it doesn't look proper. That's the reason I don't prefer the zoom. Okay, actually tab bar is located over here, so let me connect it. View control. See, if you notice that the moment I connect a new navigation controller, I got an entry about another tab. Like that, you can extend your view with as many as tab, bring the relationship. So, time to define this also, how it looks like. Maybe see the featured one over here, and make sure the second one. See that the item seen, this particular tab selection happens not in your tab bar controller. You have to select, so the tab bar controller, which is the ones which is starting point, but it doesn't have a tab element information. The tab element information always found in the respective navigation controller, because that's a wrapper for it. So I have just selected. Maybe I'll choose another say contacts, one batch for design purpose. So this is going to load the contact list. Sorry, this navigation control. Maybe. If you want to have a further relationship, you can bring further view controllers. Here, so maybe some button. Same way what we did in the first view controller. Maybe detail, whatever. So okay. So when this particular button is clicked, I'm going to load this view controller. I think it went somewhere. So this one is going to load the further view controllers. Remember, at this point, if you notice the design strategy, the tab is an initial holder of the various view navigation controller. Each navigation controller contains various view controllers loaded, and it is separated in its own way. Naturally, for example, the view controller or the one of the tab element navigation controller contains these two view controllers loaded one by one, and another set is separate one. There is no relationship with this view controller and this view controller. Don't try to relate it. You will end up messing up. So let's go into a separate categories, have its own stack and maintain it. So that's the strategy of a tab bar controller, and always maintain that if your requirement, if your application requires such a design pattern, you may choose the tab view controller. Otherwise, you can play around with the normal view controller navigation controller stack. But let's see how this is going to look. since something I messed it up. Anything, the very first view controller itself is not there. Okay, let me add a relationship. Yeah. Navigation controller. Even though we connected, it doesn't appear. First, okay, let me see what exactly went. Auto layout seems to be has not been set. This view controller has been messed up. Let me see what exactly went wrong. Already complaint is that segways initiated directly during must have an identifier. Oh my god, that's a bad idea. Relationship, because it is not a normal one. Okay, we have two view controllers, so I mean two tab elements. Tab bar is going to contains two items. The first view controller has been loaded by default, and clicking it maintains its own stack. And of course, when I click on this second tab, I had to add the auto layouting. So once I click on this one, it takes me to the second view controllers, maybe the second tab bars, the second view controller. I can any point shift it and can start from where whatever the stack where I left, because it doesn't matter for it, because it just maintains its stack accordingly. And since they are independent to each other, any stack could be maintained. Like that, you can keep adding various tabs. Typically, 3 or 4 tabs may be more than enough, because considering the size of an iPhone, having large number of tabs may not be an ideal solution. 3, 4, maybe in ideal cases 5, provided your content, that description about your tab is smaller. So if you have this kind of design strategy, you can very well handle the tab-based design. Let me add the auto layouting, doesn't look good. Damn it. So it maintains its own stack. There is a usually a best practice to have a view controller embedded with the navigation controller always, because it can maintain a stack. But it doesn't mean a tab would require a navigation controller alone as a design. It could be a directly a view controller, a single view stack. For example, one of a tab you are going to display only the single item, doesn't have a set of view controllers to be loaded. You can directly map it. Only difference, you need to point the segue. For example, it should be a relationship segue. Relationship segue, what exactly it does, it becomes a root of that element. So it is not a kind of a view controller which is stacked accordingly. For a tab bar, the root of element is featured and the contacts, two navigation controller or two view controllers. Initially, the very first tab is loaded with the navigation controller loading the very first view controller accordingly, and the subsequent stack is being maintained. Like that, you can introduce various view controllers on various items for your tab. For example, one of a view controller, let me make a third one. So let's try it. First, bring one view controller and make sure you embed that into a navigation controller. That's a preferred strategy. And that one navigation controller, we are trying to relate it. So let me find the tab bar controller, and third one is actually here. Make sure you select the relationship. it's actually coming down over here. So the third one added, and make sure this navigation controller having a title and change it to a different one, maybe downloads something. Like this. So the third item has got added. So now tab contains 3. So your stack could be maintained in this way. 3 different tabs, 3 different content categories, 3 different set of view controller stack. So this is how a tab based design works. Pretty easy in fact, but your application becomes slightly complex. The way you manage a view controller, if you are not clear enough, I would recommend not to use the view controller, tab based design. Tab based design would be suitable if you have a 3 distinct categories having their own view controller stack. Then it would be ideal. In any one point of time, this context view controller need to communicate with one of the view controller of a featured one, you will end up messing it up, the design. So in that case, may not be an ideal design. So if your view stack permits you to take a 3 distinct or 4 distinct way of categories, and of course subsequent view controllers with the independent of each other, of course tab based design would be an ideal solution. Uh, and of course, so far what we have seen is just a plain design, what a vanilla design, what your Apple on iOS provides. You can very well customize them. Say so in this case, one of a navigation controller. So you'd like to give a colorings or whatever thing. Make sure you highlight. So what is this one? Navigation bar. Okay, so you can give a various colors, title color, back image, background image. There are backgrounds, various things you can do around with this. So typically this kind of a design, usually alpha, navigation bar, bar tint, yeah, this one. You can add colors. I added into a wrong one, alpha, that's not needed. So you can add various colors for you each for the next view controller where it is. Navigation bar, you can add a loop to distinguish. Well, this one here. I think it has gone into some other design. Slightly grayish. Usually developers prefer to have some sort of background or any custom color generated through the runtime or through the code. See that different set of categories we can highlight it. That probably gives us an insight about how a tab or with the various categories work. So in this case, this particular, see this color, the title color also you can modify. All attribute inspector has all the options, but you have to make sure that you select the respective components. See these things, it's very important to select from here to see the specific attribute information, to have a different colorings, back colors, back button, every customization you can do it here to get a desired look and feel. Most popularly we will try to load images. So let me finish the image part. That's even pretty easy. Usually I prefer to have a folder to organize, keep all my images. So create a new group, say images, anything. Remember in Xcode everything is relative. It doesn't maintain a kind of folder structure. Just for your comfortability, you maintain some sort of grouping. Anywhere your file located could be easily identifiable. So I just created a group to identify, okay, I'm just trying to keep those images over there. So if you have an image, probably we'll download from. Actually, this is the one I was looking. I tried to set the color. You can, this was coming into my second screen. So the navigation bar. I was trying to set this navigation bar color. This one. You can choose different colors. Whatever color or any desired color, you can choose it according to the design. What is your design recommendation being given? You can choose this, customize it, and out of the box, iOS will try to give you an excellent look and feel. And of course, in my experience, this is the best. So you have a different stack now with the different view controllers organized and things you can maintain. Okay, let me add some images. Let me download some images. I think I already have an image. There are various ways. Usually in iOS, not only iOS, the Mac based design, everything is a drag and drop. Every application you can easily bring the files through a drag and drop. So assuming, let me open a Finder. I have in desktop one image. If I have it, so assuming I have this one, I can simply bring it. This part, copy items if needed. We'll try to keep a local copy in your project structure. Otherwise, once the relevance, suddenly I may delete the item in my desktop. So that the relationship might get broken. So whatever default it is, that make sure you just do it. Okay, I think it went too slightly. I'll just keep it inside the group. It could be anywhere. So I just brought an image. Would like to display an image anywhere. Let's see, in one of a view controller we can display the image. The first view controller I display. Okay, second I'll display because there is already this. To display image, it's pretty easy. Search for a component called image view. Just it gives a holder for your image, placeholder. So okay, now you selected image. As usual, go to your attribute inspector, see the image bar, just type few lines of the image which you dragged. It will automatically find out. You can have your image added to that. Whatever image you dragged here, you can find the reference automatically here. So the image could be brought, maybe some sort of dummy text. There is a text view. Remember, label and text view is slightly different. Usually label to display the title of a content typically, where if you have a paragraph, a bunch of letters or a bunch of information, I would recommend you bring the text view so that you can have things automatically. It has a scroller added for you, so that you can bring it, so some sort of description about your food or whatever it may be. And make sure, don't forget to add the auto layout at this point. We are not doing any kind of a manual constraint, so I just added the constraint whichever required. Let's test it. Understanding it's here. See that? So the scroll by default is here to see the overflowing content, and you have your images can be seen. Pretty straightforward, and doing a design in iOS just out of the box, and we don't have any kind of struggle here. But the problem will arise, what if I need to add more text view? I want to scroll, I want to display multiple or a longer form, so I want to scroll the entire view. How I can do it? That's where things are going to come a little complicated. It's not something so difficult, because we have one of a view called scroll view. All we need to bring the scroll view, and inside you add your view, make your content even whatever size it offload, it automatically add a overflowing content. So you can scroll the content accordingly. That's out of the box. But in order to reach to that point, I need to disable the auto layout, or I need to have a full control over the layouting, because remember, this guy, this particular text view, it itself add a scroll view. That is so in having a scroll view enabled content on the top of another scroll view may not be a right solution. So we have to find, let the text view occupy the space accordingly. So a lot of constraint we need to calculate in order to keep the content orientation always scrollable, irrespective of the whatever the size of your form factor. So there are a couple of things we need to work on. That's why I'm taking that into maybe a tomorrow session. This particular example, you can very well cover it today itself. Just, I haven't even written a single line of code, but the application looks like as if we have done something complex or complicated one. Everything was done in storyboard itself, and nothing, no single line of code has been written. And this is how I usually say iOS, the way prototypes could be created eventually faster when compared to some other mobile application development. Had it been Android, you would need to write a number of lines of code at this point. A lot of number of lines of code to achieve the same design look and feel. But whereas in iOS, with few clicks, only thing you need to have a clear understanding about what is your design strategy. So once you have it, you're always fine. So assuming I'm in this page, it means the first tab, the second view controller has been loaded. I'm suddenly going to the download section, do something, and again come back. I still be there where I actually left. The stack is maintained. So everything. So today's session, in the afternoon, I would want you to create this kind of tab-based design. Also play around with the title color, back button color, the title colors, and changing the colors of your backgrounds of desired level, whatever you want. I would prefer a clean design. Remember, this is more than enough. Instead of giving the view also a fancy design and navigation bar also a different color, may not be ideal. Usually this kind of plain colors usually preferred by iOS developers. Once they have some sort of theming added, they'll maintain the same. Don't try to give too much of colorings and don't influence too much. Try to keep a clean design. So I just added one single top color and the entire look started looking slightly as if I see a lot of application like this, because this is how most of the application, even if you see the WhatsApp version of your iOS, pretty simple design. We don't add more kind of a huge number of backgrounds or anything else. But of course, adding an image also pretty simple. Create a folder reference and keep your images organized, and simply drag an image view and tell which image you are trying to do. And we have various views in this case. There is one of the view which we may be using quite often, which is called web view. So I can bring a web view to my design. It means, for example, somewhere I add a web view. I can load some content from internet, or I can load some HTML files here, because WebView is nothing but an instance of your browser. So I can load any HTML files. So something you can design in HTML and load it over here. And remember, this is how your Cordova does. Cordova, what you did, you wrote everything in HTML, and those HTML kept in some file or some sort of folders somewhere, and it created a view controller with a single web view, and it loaded those content into the web view, and that's it created a native look and feel. That this is how it works, and this is a strategy across all the mobile export tools, because the web view component would be there. It means most of the, all the smartphones has a web browser. So the web browser instance could be accessed as an object. In this case, it is a UI web view. In Android, we have a web view. We have Windows web view. Everywhere the web view is there. So create a simple view controller and load the web view and call a HTML file in the program and load it across. Your design is done. And this kind of strategy is primarily used in most of the mobile export tools. Most of the, I'm not saying all, most of the thing. So what it really does, it is nothing but a kind of encapsulated version of a web browser. What it exactly did in your case study, because at the end I asked you to export everything to a Cordova based Xcode project. So what it exactly created, some sort of export, what it did, it created a simple view controller with the web view added. Inside it loaded the content through the HTML container. This is what it did. Of course, we can manually also create in this way. So various examples we are going to see as web view, and there are, like, if you want to add your own what you call storyboard for a different form factor. For example, I have iPad different design, but for iPhone I want to have a different design. You can have multiple storyboards. So one storyboard for iPad version and another storyboard board for a phone version. That also you can play around with that. And remember, you will also have one more storyboard which is for launch screen. This launch screen usually work as a loader. That also you can see. Let me bring the image. Usually we keep a image view in the launch screen, launch view controller. Okay, let me add the constraints, and I'll add the same thing. You see that this is the first, just to load something. You would have seen this design quite often, most of your application. Actually, this loading time you cannot control in iOS typically, because it depends on your runtime elements or how many view controllers you have, how many resources it associated. So you can see, like, that much time you can the application takes until that particular time it displays something like a loader or whatever it is. So this view controller also you can suggest, not only restricted to image, but we usually prefer image. It could be anything else, like some sort of a text saying that, or loader something it is saying, whatever it is you can add. So it usually appears while your application is loaded, and then it displays the required stack, whatever we have done. So that's the part we are going to see. So whatever pending you have, make sure you complete within today. I've been telling this even though I gave an entire day on Saturday, but I'm not sure you guys have completed. But whatever, if still some